Ready?
Yep. We can see you. We can also see the slides.
Terrific. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicole Rosemarino. I'm director of the Colorado State Land Board. The voice you just heard is our deputy director, Nick Massey. We also have other members of our staff leadership team in the room, including Assistant Director for Energy Innovation, Chris Smith, Assistant Director for Sustainability and Working Lands, Elliot Voigt, and our Public Information Officer, Emily Barbeau. We are always available if you have concerns after this meeting, before the next meeting, or in the future. Please reach out. The purpose of this county roundtable is really to share with you what the State Land Board does and opportunities we might seek to work together. 4 of our 5-member board of commissioners are in the room, including our president, Commissioner Deb Frobe, our vice president, Commissioner Josie Heath, Commissioner Christine Scanlon, and Commissioner Jim Pribble. Joining us at some point virtually will be Commissioner Mark Harvey. So welcome. I want to take some time this morning, hopefully not too much, because we want to get to a discussion with you all. Just giving you an overview of the history and mission of the Colorado State Land Board. I'll talk about how we generate revenue and the importance of that revenue for our beneficiaries. So with that, let's dive in to our history. We are celebrating our sesquicentennial alongside the states this year. Our origin story is that the founders of the United States recognized that what was crucial for a functional democracy is a well-educated citizenry. So toward that end, they provided grants to states to hold in trust to generate funds to support what they called the common schools. This started with Ohio in 1802. They received 1 square mile or section of land, 640 acres per township. In a township, it's 6 miles by 6 miles or 36 sections of land. But by the time the federal government got around to Colorado, there was recognition that 640 acres in Ohio is different than 640 acres in Colorado. So we received 2 sections per township, sections 16 and 36. And these are used to generate revenue for public schools and other public institutions. And that's why they're often referred to as school sections. We're one of 21 states that operates a state trust land system. Cumulatively, our states cover 156 million acres of land in the United States, making our consortium the 2nd largest landowner in the country. Turning to our portfolio, we have 2.8 million acres of surface land in Colorado, making us the 2nd largest landowner in the state. And you can see that much of our land is on the Eastern Plains. Some 65% or 2/3 of our surface holdings are in the eastern part of the state. You can also notice that checkerboard pattern reflecting the sections 16 and 36 of each township, but that's imperfect. And that's because not every one of those sections was available at statehood. And so we're just finishing up a deal with the federal government to provide what's called in lieu lands, and those can be larger than 640 acres. We also have the ability to buy and sell land, at least the surface, and I'll get to the nuances there in a moment. And we do. We acquire land, we sell land as a matter of course. So next slide. This is the other part of that story. When we sell the surface, unless we're selling to the federal government, we cannot convey the subsurface or mineral estate. And so our mineral estate is largely intact, and it is very important. About 5%, actually 5.2% of our mineral estate in FY25 generated some 84% of our income. So relatively modest footprint, but a large financial impact, and that was in solid minerals and oil and gas. Most of that was oil and gas. 82% of our income last year came from oil and gas leasing and royalties. And that's consistent with a pattern over the past couple decades where 70 to 80% in each year was derived from oil and gas leasing and production. And so that's critical for us and important for our beneficiaries, but it also puts us in a bit of a vulnerable position because much of that revenue is flowing from royalties, which is tied to the price of oil and gas over which we have virtually absolutely no control. And so we have recognized for quite a few years now, and there's broad recognition among our stakeholders that we really need to diversify our revenue in order to ensure consistent financial outcomes in perpetuity for our beneficiaries. We turn to our whole trust. It is valued currently at about $6 billion, over $6 billion. You can see that green half, and that is the value of our land. And so our land is really critical in our portfolio of assets. Then I'd point your attention to minerals. That it's about $1 billion of our asset value is from minerals. That red sliver is our commercial real estate as well as water rights. And then really important is that blue portion, which represents the public school fund. It's also called the permanent fund, which is managed by the state treasurer. It's currently valued at $1.9 billion. As of December of last year, it is at $1.9 billion. So that's our whole trust. Moving on to our mission. Our mission is to manage a portfolio of assets for perpetual intergenerational benefits to public schools as well as other public institutions. Really, there are two pillars, and these are outlined in the Constitution. This came through a 1996 amendment to the state constitution passed by the voters of Colorado. Those two pillars are to generate reasonable and consistent income over time. So that's not maximizing revenue, that's ensuring long-term consistent financial returns, as well as ensuring the long-term productivity and sound stewardship of state trust lands. And so we think about the revenue pillar and the stewardship pillar in everything we do. Our vision is really to make possible capital funding for the modernization of Colorado's schools. And I'll elaborate on that in a moment. Turning to stewardship, that 1996 amendment that I mentioned required the establishment of what is called the Stewardship Trust. And we are required to have 295,000 to 300,000 acres in the Stewardship Trust at all times. Right now, we're at 297,000 acres across 107 parcels of land. So we're right in that sweet spot. Stewardship Trust parcels enjoy higher standards of protection through more frequent monitoring and other special stipulations and safeguards. But stewardship is not limited to the Stewardship Trust. That's 300,000, up to 300,000 acres of our surface land. We have 2.8 million acres, and we think about stewardship for all of those acres and across all of our lines of business. And I'll give you an example, which is in the oil and gas context. When we issue leases for oil and gas, every single parcel we lease has at least one stipulation designed to preserve natural values. So stewardship is really critically important to us. Moving on to our leasing types. I mentioned there are several lines of business. There are actually 12. I've already mentioned oil and gas a bit because of its really outsized financial benefits for our beneficiaries. Also want to note the importance and centrality of agriculture. 96% of our surface acres are leased for agricultural uses. I previously mentioned diversification of revenue. We see particular opportunities in the renewable energy context. We are playing an important role in helping to decarbonize Colorado's energy sources. We are also pushing on ecosystem services, think species conservation, as well as wetlands habitat mitigation. And carbon sequestration is also critically important, we think, to the future. So these are our leasing types. Again, we are making a concerted effort to diversify, and we have actually at present almost 8,000 leases in place. And often on the same parcel of land, we will layer leases in order to generate more benefits for public schools. And we work to ensure that those mutual leases work in tandem. Turning to recreation, this is a space where we are very active. There's currently a state trust lands conservation and recreation work group, which was required under state law passed last year. We are very actively involved in this work group, providing work products that will help provide more information to the work group as it does its work, which is really to look at more opportunities to promote conservation, biodiversity, climate resilience, and low conflict recreation within the parameters of our fiduciary responsibilities. Also want to underscore the importance of our partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife in our recreation work. We have 965,000 acres leased to CPW through the Hunting and Fishing Access Program. We also have a number of private recreation leases, about 450, many of those for hunting, but for other uses as well. This is a place where we could really use local government help in conveying an important message to the public, which is that our lands are different from public lands. They're not like Forest Service or Bureau of Land Management lands. They are lands held in trust for a very specific purpose to support public schools in the state. And so we really could use your help in conveying that message. And CPW is a critical partner in helping us on that end as well. Turning to regulatory authority, the short answer is we have none. We are a division within the Department of Natural Resources. Some of our sister agencies, such as the Energy and Carbon Management Commission, do have regulatory authority. It's a different story with the State Land Board. We're, in essence, a landowner just like any other. Really important for counties and municipal governments is that when we issue leases, our lessees are required to follow any pertinent local, state, or federal laws or regulations. And so that's really important to acknowledge, and we make no promises to our lessees on that end. They really, it's up to them to go through those processes and make sure they're following all of the local government requirements. Turning to local context, that's particularly important point for the local context, but also just wanted to say thank you, all of you, for attending today. This is actually our first virtual roundtable, and we are experimenting with this approach because we really wanted to widen access. Our board meets monthly, and we about 4 times out of the year have those board meetings outside of Denver, so we can put our finger on the pulse of what's happening on the local level. But this roundtable we thought would be a nice way to operate a virtual platform to enable folks far and wide to participate. We really want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to rush through the next few slides because we want to get to that discussion with you. But we look to you for critical partnerships, and I just want to highlight one in the local context, and that is when you're considering zoning or planning decisions that involve state trust lands. We would love if you would reach out so we could have conversations about good outcomes there. If we spot it before you do, we'll be sure to reach out to your government so we can have a really good communication and collaboration. Turning to our beneficiaries, this is, I'm going to go back one slide. Yeah. This is the fun part. This is the Weldon Valley School District. And we had the pleasure of visiting this project back last June, so June of 2025. This renovation was made possible by a grant from the Building Excellent Schools Today program, or the BEST program, which is the capital construction arm of the Colorado Department of Education. And so it's really nice to visit a school where you can see the tangible benefits from the efforts we endeavor every day here at the State Land Board. And then turning to statewide statistics on the next slide. In 2025, we generated $257 million from our leasing, and our distribution to BEST was a combination of some of that revenue from leasing, as well as a disbursement from our permanent fund, totaling $171 million. So that is really the essence of what we do. And with this, I'd love to open it up to questions. I know some of you submitted questions in advance. Feel free to raise your hand so that we can hear your question, and anybody who didn't, anyone in attendance, please let us know what's on your mind.
Well, if I might, this is Deputy Director Nick Massey. Folks listening along online, if you were in a panelist mode and you can currently see other panelists, you have control of your microphone and camera. So you're welcome to engage up with us completely at your own discretion, but we do appreciate raised hands. If you've joined us separately in an attendee mode, so you don't see a lot beyond what we're sharing on our screen or the speaker, you'll need to raise your hand, and we'll need to modify your access so that you can then control the mic. As a reminder, this is intended to be a conversation between our commissioners and county commissioners and county staff. And we are not intending to take public comment during this part of our meeting. But please make sure that we know that you'd like to engage with us so that we can do that. In the room here, we've got 4 of our commissioners, and one of our commissioners, Mark Harvey, is joining us virtually. So he's part of the Zoom crowd this morning, and he's on. So Tony, looks like you're going to start us off. Feel free.
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you so much for doing this and allowing us to relay the concerns and maybe get some clarification on a few things. I'd like to start with just a small statement and then one question. Small frontier rural counties are struggling to keep Main Street open for business the way it is, the economy is, especially after Senate Bill 181. The only economic provider in many of these small rural communities is agriculture. So any disturbance to the agriculture sector trickles down to these fragile communities. And the loss of grazing would decimate those communities if that happens. There won't be a need to generate any educational revenue. We're suffering with open storefronts the way it is in many of our small rural communities. If you've been out and traveled and seen in southern Colorado and southeastern Colorado, a lot of those storefronts are empty, and the mom and pop stores are struggling to survive. My question is, having owned lots of acres myself in the past, I don't anymore, but at one time I had 3,500 acres of state land that I leased, and I raised cow-calf production on it. And many of these school sections are located in the middle of private property. There's no access. They aren't fenced out. And we did allow hunters on those, but when we're talking about recreation and that possibly happening, the question is, how would they access those state land parcels?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Haas. It's a great question, and it's one that I think the State Trust Lands Conservation and Rec group is going to be grappling with. That was the work group that I mentioned that had been created through a state law last year. I think the quick answer is we're very careful to look at what's appropriate on different properties. Not every use is appropriate for every property. Recreation is not appropriate for every property. And so I just know that that's how we do business is really to look at it in context. And certainly, given the extent of our land, some 96% that is leased for agricultural purposes, those agricultural lessees have certain rights under 36-1-118 of Colorado Revised Statute. And we abide by those legal requirements and certainly consult with ag lessees when new leases are proposed. So it's a very in-depth, well, it's a really good question, and it's certainly timely given that State Trust Lands Conservation and Rec Group. I'd also mention that I heard you speak at the unveiling of the Colorado Outdoor Strategy last year, and part of what I think that work group is also going to look at is how to get it right through balancing the types of concerns with climate resilience and conservation and recreation and agricultural that were part of that Colorado Outdoor Strategy. And we'll be paying attention to that framework as well as we develop our new strategic plan to be set in place in June. So really great question, and it's very top of mind. I hope that helped answer your question.
Thank you so much.
May I ask that we can have the folks identify themselves so that we know kind of who is with us today?
And what county?
What county? Yeah. And
So this was Tony Haas, Los Animas County Commissioner, and also Chair of Colorado Counties Incorporated and Vice Chair of Action Colorado.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heath. I skipped that step because I knew who he was, but you're quite right. Okay, next, Andrew Lee.
Hey there, Andy Lee, Lake County Commissioner up here in Leadville, Colorado. Hey, I was listening to you talk about your revenues, and it sounded like a whole lot of it, 82% is based in oil and gas royalties. And I hope I heard that right, because it kind of was the basis of my question. It really feels to me like the trend in Colorado is trending away from that, and that would be a pretty alarming position from my perspective to be in if the way the state seems like it's moving is away from oil and gas towards full electrification and renewable, and trying to offset the carbon emissions and everything. So how aggressive and what are some of the biggest projects you guys have for the diversification you're mentioning, as far as what is the biggest key area you would like to see replace your oil and gas royalties moving forward?
Thank you, Commissioner Lee, for the question. I'm going to take a stab at it, and then I might turn it over to our Assistant Director for Energy Innovation. But the short answer in terms of how aggressive we're going to be in replacing oil and gas is we see this as a very long-term project. As you did correctly hear, 82% of our revenue last year was from oil and gas leasing and royalties. And so that's not going to be replaced overnight. And our prime directive is to provide sustainable financial benefits to our beneficiaries, which are public schools. And so that's what we keep in mind as we do our work. We do think there are great opportunities to diversify our income through renewable energy, and about 8% of the renewable energy capacity in the state currently comes from state land, but with a very small footprint, about 3,500 acres at present. And so I think those uses can be complementary. You asked about other forms of diversification of the revenue. One is through ecosystem services. This is really promising. So biological carbon sequestration, we established actually the first commercial species conservation bank for the Prebble's meadow jumping mouse, and those endeavors can be quite lucrative. And another factor is the permanent fund. We really think that with better performance, we can see higher returns from that fund, which are an essential part of diversifying our revenue in the future. I'd also add on the oil and gas front, since that was, you underscore that as a concern, that many of these leases are held by production. So our lessees have certain legal rights. And so those will continue to be held and produce oil and gas as long as the production continues. But I'd stop there and ask if Assistant Director Smith has anything to add.
Can I ask, Sandy, this is Commissioner Fro, a clarifying question, Nicole, before we move. And that is, as you think about this, what is the area that causes you concern in terms of expanding renewables as well as possibly reducing the mineral part? If you could clarify that, that'd be really helpful.
I guess my biggest concern is when I hear things from our neighbors who are bigger oil and gas producers, is that I hear terms like, or phrases like, oil and gas is under attack in the state of Colorado. And I don't want to get into the different sides of that, but I do notice these things are being said. And when I think about how important funding is for our schools, and what your mission is, I just think about 82% of a year's revenue being labeled as under attack by many people in the rural communities. That brings concern to me. So I just want to, I'm a first year commissioner. I'm trying to educate myself on everything as fast as I can. So some of my questions might be a little bit out there, but I am just curious as to how are you future proofing some of the revenue streams if oil and gas is a kind of a controversial topic in this state, and there's two very clear sides to that industry. And that, I guess, is the basis of where my question and my concerns were coming from, because of how important school funding is.
Andy, no, that is a very insightful question. Actually, I want to compliment you on it. And it is, as Director Rosemarino said, top of mind for us as we continue to look forward into the future and understand how we can best meet our fiduciary mandate. So I welcome the question. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Director Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lee. This is Christopher Smith, the Assistant Director for Energy Innovation. I think a lot of this has been covered through the different comments, but I would just underscore that we are looking to build other lines of business to sort of backfill that. But I'd also underscore that it is very, very long term. We are seeing a reduction in nominations for new parcels, but our parcels, we currently have over 500 leases that are still producing and will produce as long as the lessee wants to, because we're legally contracted. So,
great. Thank you, Assistant Director Smith. I hope that was helpful for you, Commissioner Lee.
Sure was. Thank you, guys. It's not such a sense of urgency. It sounds like there's some long-term protections in place for these revenue streams, and you guys are kind of ahead of the ball a little bit to get the diversification train rolling here. So thank you for answering that. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the kind words, Commissioner Lee. Let's turn to Jake Neese.
Hello, my name is Jake Neese. I'm a Uray County Commissioner, and we've kind of got not an issue, but just a situation that's the inverse of what Tony Hass was describing, where state land board land might be an inholding within private. We have state land board lands that are inholdings within federal lands, within mostly Forest Service lands. And we have experienced in the past what felt a little heavy-handed when it came time for the sale of a parcel. We have some roads and trails that predate the existence of the state of Colorado, and we experienced a concern where a driveway or a shared driveway road crossed a state land board parcel that was being sold, and it risked cutting off access to folks' homes. And the county wasn't notified of the sale ahead of time, and I wanted to just ask if there was some way that we could request either notification or consultation with the local county ahead of sales so that we might be able to help deconflict issues like that ahead of time without a time crunch, and so that we might be able to try and work on things like easements. So just wanted to really request a little better communication so that we're not finding out about this from, the announcement of a sale that's already happened or a hearing where we've got limited time to prepare a response.
Thank you, Commissioner Neese, for that question. This is right on point. This is the purpose of these roundtables, is to hear what's on your mind, and going forward, if things come up and there's a sale in process and you want to raise it to our attention, that's great. Your request for notification is duly noted. I know that there are processes in place where we notify the public for any sale. Those sale decisions go in front of our board, and so there'd be opportunities at board meetings for public comments as well. We strive to be a very transparent agency. Again, we have monthly board meetings, and there's public comment opportunities at each of those board meetings, including for things that are not on the agenda. So really encourage you to take a look at our website and make sure that you see those dates where we are meeting every month. But I'm not familiar with that particular sale, but you certainly have our pledge to be in a good communication with county in your way. If anything crops up, I'll remember to make sure that we do that. But do you have anything to add, Assistant Director Hoyt?
No, Assistant Director Elliot Hoyt. Yes, absolutely. We're happy to make sure the communication is there. As Director Rose-Marino said, there is a public notification process anytime we sell, but I also realize that you aren't necessarily, trolling through those notifications. So we will make an effort to make sure that the county commissioners in those situations that we're communicating about these kinds of issues. So thank you for raising that concern.
And I say, I think what I heard is not only communication, but prior to our action. So that it isn't just telling them, but involving them. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is.
Yeah.
Sometimes those notifications go out. They might be hidden on a website, or we might have turnover in staff or commissioners, and we aren't signed up for notification emails if they do come out. You're right. Just a little more outreach rather than having to go sift through a state website and scan planned sales. One other thing I forgot to add is since we do have state land board lands that are sometimes in holdings within Forest Service lands, in our community, they are essentially seen as public lands. And I know that not all of them are public lands, but they're seen that way. And I just wanted to share that perception. I think it would be something important to be aware of, that could be perceived as, even though I understand the status of state land board lands, it could be perceived as sale of public lands to private individuals, since we do have state land board parcels that are in holdings within public lands that aren't necessarily marked or designated, that people treat as public lands. And just want to make sure that perception may exist, since there's a lot of discussion about sale of public lands in the zeitgeist right now.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Neese, and thanks also Commissioner Heath. I'll amend will notify you. we'll notify you early. Yeah, definitely want to be in close partnership on that. And thanks for recognizing that complexity when we have in holdings within federal lands that are accessible to the public. That's something that we have in mind and could certainly use your help educating the public that state trust lands are different. So thanks, Commissioner Neese. Really appreciate your questions and comments. Okay, let's turn to Commissioner Comstock. Nice to see you again.
Hi, thank you. I need to clarify, I am not a county commissioner. I work for the county commissioners. I'm the county, Moffett County's Natural Resources Director.
Great.
And so I have seen many of you over the years, and I always appreciate it when you come close to Moffett County and have an in-person meeting, and you give the local commissioners and myself an opportunity to come visit with you directly. But thanks for this meeting today. Moffett County has almost a couple 100,000 acres of state land board land in our county, and it's a mix of what your A county did and what Commissioner Hawes spoke of. We have some of it, some state land board parcels that are surrounded by private land and others that are surrounded by federal land. And we're going through a pretty significant change in our economy in Moffett County. Some of the state land board coal leases are going to be going away as our coal mines shut down and as our power plant shut down. But then again, there's different new opportunities. The state land board has leased some battery storage acreage in our county, a couple 100 megawatts of it. And looking at different, and you're looking at different other options. The one thing I would ask of the commissioners, of the state land board commissioners, is as you look at these, as the recreation and trust lands, the state trust lands working group moves forward, it's absolutely critical that they defer to the local county commissioners' land use plans. Especially, for instance, many of our counties have federal and state land use plans. And I don't see those surfacing as even an effort to be compatible with those. And I just appreciate it if there'd be a conscious effort by the state land board to reach compatibility and consistency with local, federal, and state local plans that are written for federal and state lands.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Comstock. I'll correct myself.
That's okay. I'm not sure if you demoted me or promoted me.
I think it was a promotion. But, so I guess I'd have two reactions and welcome thoughts from the commissioners, of course. One is that we are not directing the state trust lands conservation and recreation work group. I am a technical advisor. Our staff, particularly Deputy Director Massey, are providing a lot of support in terms of technical information to that work group. But the work group really is an independent body that will come up with recommendations, again, within our fiduciary parameters. And that could get at your request, actually, because as I mentioned, we are legally required to follow local land use, full stop. And so to the extent that your plans or regulations have something different to say than what's in the recommendation, there are parameters on that. And we do keep that top of mind in terms of local authority there. But I think Chair Frobe, did you have?
I just wanted to add to that for all of you on the roundtable. And again, I just can't thank you enough for taking the time to engage with us this morning. It's so helpful for us to understand issues that we hadn't thought about perhaps or hadn't been thinking about recently. On this direct one, it's our opportunity to ask or to learn from you how we can communicate the fact that we are subject to local land use. And this comes up a lot of the time too. So it's on us really to help the working group who just, they haven't had the time and they don't have the history of the land board and understand our role and also our constraints. And so we will do our best to continue to educate people that whether it's lessees, public stakeholder groups, or publicly established working groups, that we are a landowner in your county and subject to your land use plans and regulations.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment.
Commissioner Heath?
Yes, good morning. My name is Josie Heath. I'm a commissioner and I represent local government and was formerly a county commissioner for 8 years. And your concerns about local control are very clearly defined for within our authority. We are subject to all local land use. I think it's important, though, that those of you who are on this call be sure that the working group members, perhaps some from your own community, hear your concerns, because it's important for them to understand that this long tradition of local control is one that we believe should be continued. To Commissioner Haas, I served on the executive committee of CCI. I know that this thought about local control is shared by large and small counties, but I think it's the working group that needs to hear this interest of yours. So just want to encourage you to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, thanks, Commissioner Heath, that yes, there is a local government representative on that working group. There are also representatives for the agricultural sector, the recreation sector, oil and gas, renewable energy, conservation, just about everything you can think of. And on the Department of Natural Resources website, there is a list of all of those people. And I'd be happy to follow up and send you that link so you have it at your fingertips. But I completely agree with Commissioner Heath. That was the intent, I think, behind the structure of that work group. I think because it was the state legislature, so I'm not sure I can impute any thoughts there. But certainly the structure of that law is to enable a process where folks can contact members of the working group and articulate their concerns directly. But thank you, Mr. Comstock. Appreciate you attending and appreciate your questions. Okay. Next, I'm having trouble. Wendell Kuntz.
Yes, Commissioner Wendell Kuntz, Delta County, and I also serve on the CCI board with Commissioner Haas. And Jeff, you did get demoted, by the way. I have about 3 questions if you have the time. One of my concerns is it would be for the long-term revenue derived from state land board lands for our school districts. We all know that leasing and oil and gas and traditional fossil fuel development is diminishing. Has the state land board done any revenue forecasting for 10 and 15 years out? I mean, the state of Colorado's got a second year of $1 billion structural deficit. We know that schools are going to be hit hard again, and I don't see an end in sight for this. But have you guys done any long-term forecasting for revenues off oil and gas, coal leasing, and others?
Commissioner Kuntz, do you want to give us your other 2 questions now? In case we
Sure.
do some of them together?
Okay. The second has to do with leasing lands for industrial solar projects and agrivoltaic solar projects. Delta County is home to the largest agrivoltaic industrial solar on irrigated lands in Colorado. One of our concerns is the long-term viability of those lands for 30 and 50 years as those projects get extended. Has anybody done any work on how those lands will be, one, maintained and as a stewardship concept, and what the revenue forecast off those will be for that duration of those projects? Third question is, state of Colorado looks poised to take on all industrial renewable energy siting, and in doing so will take away local control. How does that affect the state land board? And is there anything we can do to work together to prevent another unfunded state mandate coming down on top of us? Is that a lot?
Yeah. But I like that there's a common theme. So I'd like to take that third one and then defer to Assistant Director Smith on the first two. But so in terms of the state poised to take on industrial siting, it just for clarification, are you concerned that they're going to preempt local control in allowing those industrial solar installations to go in?
Absolutely.
Okay. So right now, I mean, certainly I have beat the drum, as have commissioners, of the importance to us of local land use. We are legally required to follow local laws and regulations on land use. And so we are not participating in any such effort. And so that is really a question I don't think we can answer here today. I'm sure it's on the mind of quite a lot of folks. And just a slight sidebar, we have been in contact with CCI. I know you and Tony Haas have mentioned the importance of CCI, as did Commissioner Heath. So looking forward to strengthening that partnership. They advertised this virtual roundtable, for which we're grateful. Same with Colorado Municipal League. And so we're walking our talk in terms of really strengthening those lines of communication. And I know that that's a concern for them as well. But the State Land Board is not involved in any such efforts, so we really can't comment on that one. But I bet you Assistant Director Smith has thoughts on your first two questions, so I'm going to turn those over to him.
Yeah, sure. This is Christopher Smith, Assistant Director for Energy Innovation. Thank you for your questions, Commissioner Coons. I'll take them in order. The first question about projections, we do 5-year projections for each of our lines of business, but I don't think that we have anything as far out as 10 to 15 years. I would say in general, we're hypersensitive to the oil and gas reducing over that time and trying to build up other lines of business, and looking at new lines of business like geothermal to help backfill that. I would note specifically that coal, we have 2 properties that are actively producing coal in Moffett and Routt counties, and due to the power plant closures there in 2028, we project that our revenue from coal will be almost zero in about 2 to 3 years. So that's one projection. To your second question, regarding agrivoltaics, we have been in discussions. I think that's probably the right term. We've been trying to launch a pilot project in conjunction with Colorado State University and NextEra Energy. And the reason for that pilot is that in our research, we have not been able to find any long-term data. And so we wanted to create that data over time. We currently only have one utility scale solar farm on our land. That's in Pueblo County. It's the Xcel Energy's Thunderwolf project. And it's about 248 megawatts on about 2,500 acres. But Pueblo County is a very arid county. And so that's not the best spot for a pilot project. So did that answer some of your questions?
A little bit, Commissioner Smith, and I appreciate your attention to this. Long-term productivity of agrivoltaics is going to remain a real question mark for decades. And I would caution the State Land Board to be as proactive as possible in maintaining the productivity of those lands. Certainly there's all sorts of land use regulations out there for bonding for reclamation and restoration, but I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah, and I would note that our renewable energy policy directs us to identify sites that have low forage production. So we're avoiding any sort of irrigated agriculture. In large part, we're avoiding farming and looking at grazing land of low production. And we set that bar at about 1,200 acres of pounds of forage per year to try to drive energy production towards our least productive agricultural land.
Interesting. Has there been any discussion on alternative revenue streams from the renewables in terms of royalty payments, severance tax, anything like that?
Yes, we do. There has been discussions about how we price our wind and solar, and pricing it with royalties. Severance tax, we don't. There hasn't been any discussion at the state land board level on severance tax.
Okay. Well, I don't mean to dominate the questions here, but thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for your time. Appreciate the opportunity.
Commissioner Heath, has a question or a comment?
Yes. So thanks again for presenting to us. I just want to say that, for decades, the concept that local land use was an inviolate principle was changed after a couple of years ago when the directive came to change on how housing was determined. And I think that's what made many of us at the county level concerned. And I want to say that while that directive came from the administration, it was supported by the legislature. And in working on that issue myself, I heard from many legislators who told me that that was a surprise to them, that local people felt that that was running over their local control. It definitely was. And I just want to beat that drum again to say to everyone on this call, you need to be in touch with your legislators on the issues you've raised. These are not things that have come from the land board. These are things that began with the administration, but were supported by the legislature. So if you're concerned about maintaining local control on all these issues, be sure that you rally for that down at the Capitol.
Thanks, Commissioner Heath, and thank you, Commissioner Coons, for your questions. Really appreciate them. Let's end with, since we're almost at time, with Sandy Hollingsworth.
Hi, I'm also a county commissioner and heard about this meeting through CCI. I wanted to say thanks. I had submitted a question about just what were the nexus between county powers and the state land board, and you have answered quite a few of those questions. And I also wondered who was on the working group, and if that included a county commissioner, as opposed to Josie, who was a fabulous past county commissioner. So if there's a seat available for an actual current county commissioner, that would be wonderful. My question is whether you interact with the watershed groups in the state. I know that our county is small, Gilpin County is small, and we have rock mining, but we also have 2 watershed groups that are doing projects trying to conserve but also mitigate on the nexus between county and private and public lands, all of them. We don't have much state land board land in our county, but I did have the question that was answered about access. So thanks for that. So the question is, are you interfacing with the watershed groups in the state? Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Hollingsworth. What county did you say you're
Gilpin.
representing? Gilpin. Great. So one question you had was whether there's a seat for local government on the working group. There is, and it's filled. But I will send you that list of all of the folks that have been appointed to that working group. Those appointments were made by the governor and the legislature back last year. But in terms of interacting with watershed groups, particularly on mitigation projects, I'm going to mention a couple of things and then turn it over to Assistant Director Elliot Hoyt. We do actively partner on a number of ecological restoration projects designed to improve the health of riparian areas, wetlands, fens, as well as watersheds more generally. We partner with nonprofits towards this end, with the Colorado State Forest Service. In my presentation, I mentioned how stewardship is really front and center. I didn't have time to go through all the many ways in which we advance stewardship, but certainly watershed health is top of mind. I mentioned wetland mitigation banks. We partner often with private lessees in order to improve watershed health to generate revenue for our beneficiaries. So it's really wonderful when our revenue goals completely intersect with our stewardship goals through that restoration. But glad you asked the question. We're very much working on it. And in terms of more specifics or any other color you want to add, Assistant Director White?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Assistant Director Elliott Hoyt. Yes, everything that Director Rosarino said, very much interested. Certainly the Ecosystem Services Group, we work on a number of projects with a number of groups on watersheds, including the co-swap projects with the Colorado State Forest Service, which are, fire mitigation efforts that are also protecting watersheds. Also, I'll point out we have a water program. So we have a water program manager, and that the interest in that program stretches into all aspects of the watershed and thinking about how water moves through our environment. And just another example, yesterday I was on a call with a group. There's a grant-funded program that's statewide on watersheds that's working with Colorado State Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, CPW, and we're partners in that project as well. And part of what it's doing is it's focusing on watersheds throughout the state and looking for select projects and combining it with economic initiatives to try to support the timber industry so that these kinds of sustainability projects can create funding that support local communities economically that then go on to strengthen long-term solutions. So we're always looking for more engagement. So if you have particular projects or groups that you feel like we should be talking to, always welcome to hear their names and make contact with them and see where we can connect. Even if we don't actually have a piece of land, as you noted, in that county, these efforts cross over many boundaries, and so we're happy to help wherever we can.
You.
Thanks, Commissioner Hollingsworth, for that question. We are at time, but I see one more hand raised. And so Commissioner Linke, you will be our last question. Feel free.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to put together this meeting and listening to us. So yeah, my name is Merritt Linke. I'm a commissioner, and I think this is the start of my 14th year here in Grand County. As you know, it's the headwaters of the Colorado. So a lot of the questions that I had have been asked. I also sit on the CCI board as the Mountain District representative. So I don't really have a question. I just have some observations and some comments and some encouragement for what I would ask that you would do. And the first thing is that, and I think you've mentioned that you're going to do this, and I hope that actually happens, is that you would do more outreach to the people that are directly affected by these decisions. I think that's critical, no matter what side you're on, if you're an ag producer, an oil and gas producer, or a recreation user. Definitely reach out to the people that are mostly affected. And then the next thing is that I want to make sure to encourage you to really always look at the long-term solutions when you decide to put in a solar farm or a wind tower or whatever, or to get rid of oil and gas. I mean, is there a replacement for that source of energy? Is there indirect effects or to that particular habitat? And then the next thing is, and I really appreciate that you have made some statements that makes me a little more optimistic that we're going to support ag, because as we know, ag produces food that ends up on our tables, and some of the other, and oil and gas produces the heat that we like in our homes, especially when it's -1 here today, and the lights to come on. And then something that we often don't think about or forget about is that keeping these ag operations sustainable also provides wildlife habitat. And sometimes that gets pushed aside and we just think of ag as taking and ruining the landscape. So just some things to keep in mind as we go forth with this project. And again, thanks for putting together this call and listening to all of our comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Linke, for all those comments with which I 100%. So with that, I want to do one last thing, which is, since this is a pilot, could you raise your hand if you think we should do these more often? All right, I see critical mass. That's wonderful. I have to reach out to Kelly at CCI to give her special thanks, and she did a great job recruiting. But yes, I think the votes are in, and we'll do this again. Thanks so much for taking the time to participate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.